Hello.
Oh, that's better.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No.
Hello, and welcome to Spooky Sips, where we put our love of horror movies into a podcast and sip some spirits along the way. I'm one of your hosts, Yvette, here with my co-hosts, Laura and Brianna.
Hello.
Hey, hey. Okay, so we just finished watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie because we are a horror review podcast. We have to at least do one of his movies. And I know they're not all like horror, but they're all, psychological, spooky,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we just finished watching The Village. Basically, it's about the fact that there are a series of events that test the belief of a small, isolated village. That's all you know.
It's a good way to summarize
really, when you go into it, you don't know
honestly.
much. There's just this really little village and something is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the olden days of yore.
The days of
Yes.
yore.
No, I don't actually know what the days of yore means. It's just old school.
But the people, they dress kind of old-timey. They speak in, kind of an old-timey, very proper way. They don't have any technology. Like, they make their own butter and, sew their own clothes.
Yeah, like
and
it's
stuff.
the old days. Like, you
it's
just
like
get the vibe that it's the old days.
Old-time, isolated little village.
Right.
Okay, days of yore just means a long time ago.
Okay, so then it was. It's
Days
the
of
days
yore.
of yore.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Days of yore.
Well, and we do get a little bit of a hint on where we are. Because with one of the very first scenes is they're at like a funeral, right?
Mhm.
And the gravestone has the years.
Oh, that's right.
And the years are like 1860 something, right? So we know we're in like the late 1800s.
Yeah.
I never noticed the years on the gravestone.
Seriously?
No, I never paid attention to that. It's so funny.
Oh, because I immediately saw, because I was like, well, that's a little coffin. How old is
Right.
the person that's like died? That, so I immediately tried to like calculate the years.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I know that Laura and I have seen this because we did when it came out, because our dad really liked this movie. He likes all the M. Night Shyamalans, but he loved this one.
Mm-hmm.
But Yvette, had you seen it before?
Yes. I thought I hadn't for some reason. Like, I didn't remember having watched it. So I did see it, but I saw it actually somewhat recently. I watched it maybe 3 to 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I watched it with Max. It was like, oh, because actually he really likes it. So we had sat down and watched it, but it had been I want to say it was 5 years ago. So it had been long enough that I didn't really remember until halfway through the movie. I was like, no, I have seen this.
I do that all the time.
Honestly, I think a lot of people do that. I think we are not alone for that. I think it's common.
Mhm.
It's great. It was like watching it for the first time all over again,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like so many of M. Night Shyamalan movies are there's always a twist. There's always a very
Yes.
big twist. And you know that going in. But even though you know that going in, it's, for me personally, the twists always surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too.
I never really see them coming. And so the first time watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie is very different than watching it any other time.
Mhm.
Although, honestly, I don't know which one I like more. Once you know the twist, going back and watching it the second or third time,
Right.
Mhm.
you pick up on stuff you didn't the first time.
Totally.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we start at the funeral.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just start to get a vibe for how this little town works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Covington, right? It's the name of the little town, I believe.
It's either that
it's
or the
Covington.
woods are called Covington Woods. It's something like that. I
okay.
can't remember
Okay.
exactly, but that word is used.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Right. But we do get the sense that it is very isolated. It's this group, because early on we learned there's the elders in the group, and it's not a lot of them. It's a dozen, if that. And so we know that it's a small little area, and it's very self-sustaining, and everyone is close. They have their communal vibe happening.
And they have a lot of a very pretty strict rules.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
the elders, if anyone needs to make a decision about something that they're going to do in the town, whether it's, getting married or going into the woods, which we'll talk about in a minute, they always have to consult the elders.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much what the elders say goes. And they all just kind of respect that you follow the rules and you respect everyone else in the community, but you do what you're told to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And early on in one of the opening scenes, it's because I will say one of my favorite things about this movie is the cinematography in it. And we've got this simple little scene where there's two girls and they're in their skirts and they're, sweeping the porch, and then they start twirling. And it's just a very like innocent, sweet moment. But then, one of their faces goes a little like, and they see this red flower blooming on the porch and they quietly go and get it and then quickly go and bury it in the ground. And you're like, what? Like, it's a weird moment where you're like, okay, like, what's going on here?
And then you learn, then pretty quickly that red is a forbidden color.
Yes.
And so, and eventually then you learn why. So this little village is surrounded by, on all sides. It's completely it's kind of like in the middle of these pretty thick woods. And in the woods are what they call, and you don't see any of the creatures for quite some time, but they just the whole community refers to them as those we don't speak of. But they're we get the idea that they're scary, they're violent, they might harm humans if provoked, and they are attracted to the color red. So that's why it's a forbidden color.
And yellow is kind of the safe color. Like, we're wearing yellow, so that means like you don't bother us. So yellow is kind of used as a boundary color.
Yeah, I like the whole way the movie's shot too, and it's one of the ones where less is more. You kind of hear stories and you hear sounds and you see just like lighting at night where the kids get scared, doing little dares and stuff, and you don't see a ton, but it makes it scary.
Yeah. And it makes it that you're really wondering, like, what is going on? Like, you feel that vibe that like there's something darker underneath, but you don't get it for a while. So you're just kind of constantly wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also get the elders. We learn that they have these like black boxes with locks on them. So like the whole time you're like, there's like a secret or something dark looming in this little town, this little village.
Totally. But it's so hard to know like what it is and to like try to figure it out. You're like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
So early on, the elders are meeting, and one of the younger people asks to meet with them, and he's got something to say. And that's where we meet Joaquin Phoenix. What was his name in the movie?
Lucius Hunt. Which is such a great name. Lucius is. And Ivy Walker are the two main young characters.
This is where we meet, him, and he comes in and he's very timid and quiet and kind of just, he's inward. Like, he's an inward man. And he says that he wants to go to the towns, as they call it. Now, nobody that's of the younger ages have been to the towns. This would be the first time a young person was going. And so we get the vibe that it's a very like, no, you don't do that.
So here's why he wants to go. I mean, you have to cross through the woods where the creatures are in order to get to the towns. But he has just watched, from the funeral, he's watched a young member of the community pass away from a disease. And then also, what's the guy who plays Noah? What's his
Adrian
Brody.
Yes.
Yeah, Adrian Brody. So he it's kind of controversial. So he pretty much just he's playing intellectually disabled person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But Lucius is over there saying, well, maybe I could go get medicine that could help him.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to do the noble thing, but yeah, he's very clearly scared to do it.
Because
Okay.
we
Yeah.
also get the vibe, and there will be stories later that we learn, but we already get the vibe that like the elders are from the towns and they've come here to be away from that because it's a very dangerous, awful place.
Yes.
So even though the woods are terrifying with the creatures, that's bad enough, but then you actually have to go to the dangerous town. So it's very like,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so they pretty much tell him, sorry, Lucius, no.
Mhm.
This is against our rules. We have vowed that we won't do it because of the violence that, we were just talking about. So you're out of luck. You're not going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so then we meet Kitty Walker, who Judy Greer plays her. I have to say,
I
love it.
I love it. So how we meet her first is she goes up to her dad, who is
Oh, I don't remember, but he's my favorite actor in this movie. Like the part that he plays,
William
he
Hurt.
has won awards for. Like,
yes, William Hurt. Mm-hmm. So she goes up to her dad and she is like, Dad, I'm getting married.
I'm
Or
in
something
love.
like that. I'm in love and I want your permission to get married. And then the
Yes.
dad's all like, well, who's this boy you speak of that you're getting married to? And she's like, it's Lucius Hunt. And he's like, does he know of your intentions?
No.
Nope.
No.
And he's like blown. He's like, he doesn't know. What do you mean he doesn't know?
And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess you could like go talk to it.
And I just have to say that like I will never I am sorry, she's a phenomenal actress, but I will never see her as anything different than the best friend in 13 going on 30.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just see her as that character in this time and it's just my favorite thing. Like I love it.
Yeah. No, I like it. I was like spit out my drink laughing at the next scene because then we get her going to talk to Lucius and she just confesses her love for him, and we pan to him and the first thing I remember is he's wearing these pants, but the belt is like halfway down the pants for some reason.
Yeah.
So it's like you pan to him just like no emotion.
Nothing.
Says absolutely nothing. And then we just get like, boom, cold cut to Kitty just bawling her eyes
Wailing. Out. She's wailing.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that her sister is Ivy Walker, who is blind, and her and Lucius are friends.
Yeah.
And they're also friends with Noah, the boy that we talked about before. So like Ivy and Noah are pals. And you kind of get the sense that like Ivy cares for Noah a lot. Like she kind of knows how to like be with him and get through to him. And so like she's kind of a care role to Noah.
And honestly, probably they've bonded a little bit because he's a little different than everyone else just because of his intellectual disability. But then she's different from everyone else because she's blind. So they probably just have been able to bond a little bit of over that.
And we very quickly get the sense that like you can tell that Ivy has feelings for Lucius. In one of the scenes, they're talking about how like she and Noah came up to him, but he was very quiet and she knows he's there. And she's like, oh, I bet you wonder why I know. And it's because I can see your color.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that some people, not a lot of people, but some people have a color and she can sense when they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And she won't tell him what his color is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I want to know.
I know.
I bet it's red.
Right. That's kind of what I thought too.
That's what I think.
And then Noah gives her the berries that are red, and they all quickly realize that like Noah must have had to have gone into the woods.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like, oh shit, like without saying that, they're gonna like, like he must have gone into the woods to get these.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which Lucius takes as a sign of like, maybe that means it could actually be safe if he did it. And
because he was so well-intentioned, they could sense. So they would know I had really good intentions and they would let me through.
Yeah. So he kind of goes then back to the elders to ask to do it again. right? Doesn't he?
Yeah, at one point he asks again.
Yes.
Well, okay. Or at one point they're like going through and like painting the posts, outside, and Lucius like steps out.
Mhm.
He takes a few steps outside of the village, and someone sees him.
Yeah.
I don't think we even see if it's one of the monsters or not. We see kind of like something
Shadow.
moves in the bush and like goes away, and something sees him, and then later he confesses
Right.
to
Oh, yeah, it was me.
because the monsters come to town.
Yeah, so they think like they were invited.
Mm-hmm. Or he's like, I was like, because of his transgressions.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
they
and
came back.
how we know the monsters have come to town, this part was really freaky, is we start to get these skinned dead animals that are kind of left around town. Like, it's really gross and creepy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, like it looks very realistic.
It does.
Like, I hate it.
And so they have this watchtower where someone wears a yellow robe and watches.
Oh, and I swear, it's like the worst watch person ever. Like, this guy's like always like sitting down.
Like, dude, could you pay a little attention, please?
Mm-hmm.
But he hears something, and so he opens the hatch, and he sees this red cloaked creature run through.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into what happens next, we should probably talk about what we're sipping on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has to do with red cloaks.
So Brianna, you picked our drink this week.
Yes, I did. As I stall as I pull it up. Okay, so because of that, I was like, well, we have to do like a little Red Riding Hood. Because are we ever going to have a chance to do that again? I don't know, maybe, but I thought this was a good one.
Yeah.
So we're doing the Little Red Riding Hood cocktail. So it's a little involved, but it's worth the payout. You muddle raspberries and basil together, and then you add 2 ounces of orange-infused vodka. You can make your own, or you can just buy one. They're pretty common. You do 1 ounce of lemon juice, 3/4 an ounce of simple syrup, and then 2 to 3 dashes of lemon bitters. And then you shake that all with ice in a shaker, and then you strain it into a chilled cocktail glass.
Sounds so delicious.
I feel like it's a good, I mean, we're in winter, but honestly, it's a really good summer drink because you get that like it's just fresh raspberry juice that you're drinking with
Exactly.
it. I will add one small note. I did make the cocktail, and it's very little. So if you make it based off of the recipe that we'll share, I like tried pouring it into like kind of a normal size cocktail glass, and then it was really tiny. And then I looked back at the picture of where we found it, and I realized that's probably a really little cup. So it's just like a little taster one.
Yeah, or you just double.
Double.
Or triple.
Maybe double or triple even the ingredients.
I mean, it's Little Red Riding Hood.
That's that's true. It was in the name.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is a beautiful color. Like we get the forbidden color.
The forbidden color.
Amazing.
So what happens is the guy rings the bell in the tower, and that's like warning. And we had known that the elders had a meeting because Kitty and Ivy were watching all the town's children. And so they were at home with all the children and Noah. And so we kind of see the chaos of the town, because this isn't something that happens often.
Because of the agreement, like you don't go on our turf, we don't go on yours. Like the creatures, those we don't speak of, they don't come into the town. They leave signs, but they don't really come into the town. So this is a big deal. Yeah.
So everyone's panicking. They all are shutting themselves in the house. They're shuttering their windows. Some are going into they have like shelters in their floorboards that they're going into.
It's almost like tornado shelter vibes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And earlier, Ivy and Lucius had been talking, and she said that like, you don't touch me anymore. Like, you used to hold my hand, or I would fall and you were always there to catch me. Like, you don't do that anymore. And so
I love their love story. Like,
It's my
that was such a
favorite.
good way of like describing like a crush, like being like, it's because you stopped
Yes.
that I know, you know, it's like because I knew you wanted to help me and to hold my hand and you stopped. Like that's how it was. And I was like I love their love story. The way that they have such good like chemistry, their characters just worked. I loved their love story.
Yes. I agree. I loved their love story so much because like back after, you know, he had kind of rejected Kitty, you can tell that you know, Ivy is just trying to comfort her sister, but you can tell even then that it's because she knows, she's like, well, because he's my love and I'm his, but they're not allowed to say it quite yet. And it's just this quiet, like understanding and fully seeing the other person, like for lack of a better word, obviously, you know, she can't see him, but
well, no, but yes,
but like fully seeing him,
she
like
sees him in her heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, agreed.
And so, yeah, they're, you know, we show Kitty and Ivy like getting the children all to come into the shelter and Noah, because Noah's with them. And Ivy won't go in. She's standing at the door and she's like, Lucius is still out here. Like he's not home yet. And she's like, he will come to make sure I'm okay. Like, so she's just holding her hand out the door. And it's like shaking.
And Kitty's like screaming at her, like, get in here. And
she's saying, like, don't let them in. Like,
don't let them in.
And again, the cinematography is so beautiful because the way that it's filmed, we see a lot of different angles. But at one point, we see a creature and Ivy can't see it, but it's coming towards her. And then just very quickly, his hand enters the shot, grabs her, spins her around, takes her to the shelter.
Like in slow-mo.
Oh, no, yes.
Oh, God.
It's so good.
It goes into slow-mo and just the music with it all. It's just like, it's like romantic and dramatic and wonderful.
I love the like simple music in this is beautiful.
Oh, no, it's so well done. Okay, well, we have to talk about the monsters because the design for these monsters is so cool.
Yes.
Like, because I think at this point we finally get to like see them and that we see the cloaked figure, but you get this like, it's like their backs are like porcupines.
Yes.
Like you get these like things coming out of these giant cloaks and then like their long kind of like pointed nails. It's like, it's like, yeah, that is what I'm scared of popping out of the forest.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And they're,
no, it really is.
They kind of walk like humans, but they're extra big, like they're tall.
And there's also
just so creepy.
There's just something so eerie and confusing about the fact that they are wearing cloaks because you're like, this isn't just an animal because an animal doesn't make and wear cloaks. So you're like, shit, is this like a human crossbreed creature? Because there's something human about it enough to dress itself, which is wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the monsters are so cool looking. Honestly, most monster reveals I end up being like a little bit disappointed by.
Almost
this one is, I mean, as soon as you get that like side profile of them walking, I was like, yes, this is an awesome monster.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, agreed. I loved it. It's very good. So then I think Kitty moves on very quickly.
Yes, very.
So Kitty, who professed her love to Lucius in just that like way, like, I love you, let's not hide it anymore.
I love that scene so much.
It's just such a like a girl-like quality.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hide it anymore. I love you.
Yeah. And he's just like, right. No thanks. But anyway, so she moves on very, very quickly. She meets this, or there's this other boy in town who she is like, oh, okay,
he'll do.
He likes me.
Yep.
And so she instantly like is marrying him.
Yep. We are now getting ready for a wedding.
And it's such a cute wedding.
Such a pretty wedding.
Right? Like, it's such a pretty, I saw that too. I was like, okay, wait, I love this vibe.
When did this movie come out? Because I feel like maybe it was this movie that inspired all those beautiful barnyard weddings.
Yeah,
like
2004?
Okay, yeah.
You know what? I'm saying, I stand by this. I think this movie is what sparked that whole
and the
rustic barnyard wedding trend.
Oh. Yeah. No, yeah, the like all the flowers, all the candles, like it's I love the vibe.
You can tell that people are a little on edge because of what had just happened. And we do show them giving them the gift of meat. So they like have a ceremony where they give the creatures meat.
They
They
like sacrifice
throw it
the
in.
meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like
Like a
throw it
piece.
into the woods.
Okay, with this scene, it's like not that big a piece of meat.
It's
But
tiny.
it's like two guys like carrying it, and they do like three full, like two.
I could have done that one-handed.
3 full swings in order to throw it like not even 2 feet.
No,
Onto
I
the rock.
completely agree.
There was something about that one scene where I was like, no. I was
Very
like, that was
anticlimactic.
unnecessary.
You thought it would be like a whole beast. It was not. It's a
And
leg.
it's like a little, I was like, you gotta toss one swing.
Exactly.
And-
And I feel like if their point of doing like the big swing was so that the creature like stays further into the woods and doesn't get too close to the border, they do have like the technology there. They probably should have had like a meat slingshot to just
Catapult.
flick it in.
Yes.
Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. That was one of my issues with this movie. For some reason, that one scene.
Yeah, I get that. Is it at the wedding that Kitty gives Ivy her blessing on, like, because she's like moved
Not
on
yet.
now?
Not
Oh,
yet.
not yet.
It's the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
What does happen though is that there is a scene where Ivy is sitting with one of the elders, and I love this actress. Her name is Cherry Jones. Jones is the last name, right? Cherry Jones. Yeah. Anyways, she's in a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. She is sitting with Ivy and saying that like, oh, your sister reminds me of my sister. And she's like, oh, why isn't your sister here? And she says that like her sister did not live past her 23rd birthday. And then she tells Kitty or Ivy that her sister was killed by a group of men in the towns.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it like, they are very sheltered in every sense. So you can tell that hearing about this story is like, she even asks, she's like, why would you tell me this like dark thing? And then later she goes up to her sister and like hugs her very intensely and cries because I think that shook her.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the wedding is cute.
But then they show up again.
Yeah, it's at the end of the night, right? So they're like dancing. They're like at the dancing part. And
I think it's like a little kid comes in, right? And says,
no, it's like Ivy hears something screaming, but she looks around and no one else has noticed. So she's like, oh, wait. And then we get a couple more people that are kind of hearing it. And then we realize there are a couple of young children like screaming for their parents.
That's what it is.
And again, just the way that they like showed us in such a drawn out way what had happened. And what had happened was like there was a lot of those creatures everywhere that were skinned alive, like the little creatures. And it's just very like obviously insidious.
Yeah. They almost kind of look like a baby pig or something.
Yeah, or like a
dog,
or like a tiny
dog.
fox or something.
Fox or something. Yeah.
Something cute and tiny and adorable.
Right.
But not anymore.
But skinned alive.
But skinned alive.
You know. Yeah. And then at this point, I don't really remember.
Well, and then I think they like mark the doors, right?
That's
with
right.
red.
Yes.
Like you get all the red marks at the door. And then that's kind of it. Like they don't like hurt anyone in the village or anything.
No.
And
you can tell that they're like ramping up the game like, hey, you guys came into our turf. We're like, even though you like sacrificed this thing, like now we're marking you. It's like everyone's getting really, really scared.
And I think at this point, and this might be one of those things where I'm only noticing it because it's a rewatch. But at this point in the movie, there is this very subtle change where like the elders seem more confused and upset than they were before.
Yeah.
Yes, they were concerned before, but now they're like all kind of looking at each other questioningly.
Like, what?
Like, wait a second. Like,
yeah.
And again, you won't really get that unless it's your rewatch of it. But
I don't think you catch that the first time.
But it happen.
And then, so I think now we get the talk between the sisters.
Yes.
And another notable outfit, or maybe not even outfit, accessory Kitty's wearing the biggest scarf I've ever seen.
I love this scarf. Why? Where is she going?
It is just a gigantic, like, it's like, I don't even know how necks could be that big.
Like, and it's like, what? She's not going into town. Like, what are you dressed like that for?
Why are you wearing just this giant, thick scarf?
I don't know. Maybe her wedding night was crazy and
That's
she's got
true.
like hickeys all over her neck and she's trying to hide it.
That's true. Well, Kitty, you were not subtle.
So yeah, we get the talk with them, and we also get that like everyone in the town is talking about that, like, oh, Lucius and Ivy were asked because they had to go to the elders to ask as well.
Yeah.
Like, so the elders knew that they were now a couple because they had to get permission. Like, and so it's very sweet. Like, they can now like hold hands and stuff because, you know, it's official.
They're getting married.
Yes.
And Kitty gives her blessing, saying like, yeah, I found the love of my life in this, like, 2 minutes. You're fine.
In her defense, there's probably like 5 guys.
Yes.
Right.
In the whole village.
I have a bone to pick with that, but we'll talk about that one later. But and so it goes pretty quick from this point,
very
right?
quick. They're very happy. Both Lucius and Ivy are just very happy knowing that they're about to get married. But somebody is not quite so happy. Like, the whole town's happy, but somebody is not quite so happy. Noah.
Yep.
Because yes, he has this really good friendship with Ivy, but you can tell that he maybe doesn't quite understand like the limits of their friendship. And I don't know if it's that he's in love with her and he's jealous
or just doesn't want her to be taken away
or
from
doesn't
him.
want their relationship to change. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a very like intense scene because we're seeing everyone around the town talking about how they're a couple and it's very happy. But then, you know, Noah comes to Lucius's house, Luci's house. And you know, he's there and you can tell that Noah's upset. And Lucius is like, okay, this is about, you know, me and Ivy. Like, let's talk about this. He's trying to like, and then again with the video work, like we just see a close up of Lucius's face and then a close up of Noah's face. And then it pans down to the fact that Noah just stabbed Lucius.
Yep.
It's just so raw. Like I felt, and I remember the first time I ever watched this movie, it felt like I watched a real life in-person stabbing. Like, that's to me what this felt like.
Yeah.
I completely, and the few moments that follow after are really like, they just got the scene so perfectly. Because then Noah is upset because Lucius falls. And you can tell that Noah's like, I don't know what to do. Like, so he sets the knife down and he backs away, but then he comes back and he checks on him and he's kind of not sure what to do. And he grabs the knife and then just very quickly just starts like, we just hear him just stabbing the shit out of Lucius.
Over and over again.
Oh. No, it's just shocking.
Yeah.
Like, you don't expect it.
No.
You're watching, like, that was like a full, like, audible gasp.
Yes.
When that scene happened, where it's like, oh, wait, what? Like, why?
So then we see that there's going to be another meeting, and, you know, the parents of Noah are getting ready, and they're trying to talk to him, and he's not responding, so they notice he's on the porch on this rocking chair, and his hands are just covered.
It's covered in blood.
You know, and he's just saying like the bad color over and over.
So upsetting.
Yeah.
So they like lock him in this little 1-room building. Like, I don't know if it's like their makeshift jail.
Yeah, like I think they called it the quiet room a few times. Like, you know, it locks from the outside and they put him in there and then they're kind of like, okay, but what happened? Like, nobody knows there's no one that's injured that they can see. So they're like, I don't understand. Like,
but then Ivy knows, and she just like has that intuition that it's her man. and she just runs to his house. And when she finds him and he's just dying on the floor, and when she says that she cannot see his color, basically like his color is fading, he's leaving. It's just so heartbreaking.
And they have to like pull her off of him, screaming.
Yeah. The scene where because she walks in and she's like calling to him, and then you just get her like essentially tripping over him.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Because she walks in, she kind of trips and then like kind of looks down and doesn't see anything, but realizes that it's him. And
there's just such little details in this movie that like I think really make it. Like even as she was quickly trying to get to his house, we see her counting. And that's because we learned earlier that she like knows everyone's houses by how far they are from hers. Like Lucius is 49 steps or whatever. Like, so it's little details like that just are throughout the movie that I think make it so like, intense.
Yeah. Agreed.
And this happens, I think we're like halfway through the movie.
Yes.
At this point.
Yes.
You know, so we get the like, oh, this is what the movie is about. And then we get this. And it's like, oh.
Like, oh shit.
Hold up.
Okay, wait, what?
So now if this is happening.
Yep.
Because then Ivy is like, this is my man. There are medicines in the towns that can save him. And she requests permission from the elders to go to town.
There is the sad moment before that, though, where she goes and confronts Noah. Oh yes. My, again, like it's just the emotions that it draws, like, you know, because earlier in the movie, Noah had gotten in trouble and was supposed to go in that room, but he didn't like it. So she like bargained with him and saved him from it. It was this real sweet moment where she like understood him, you know, but now she goes to visit him and she just starts slapping him and he's like crying
and cowering.
And then she gets pulled away and he's just screaming. Like it's just a really sad moment.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
That's bad. That's very bad.
Yeah. And so Ivy's dad decides that maybe she should go to town and get the medicine.
None of the other elders like agree because even when he's I think trying to persuade them, saying like, yeah, she should go, and they're like, they said no. We all made a vow. We cannot have anyone go to the towns. This is against everything we stand for, everything we've built. And I think he even says something about how if we don't let her go, then she's going to experience everything that we were running from. Everything that we tried to get away from is what she's going to go through if we don't let her go.
Because he's saying like this was a crime. A crime was committed.
It was a crime.
She is experiencing the very thing we ran from.
Yeah.
And this is where like I just love M. Night Shyamalan's like vision, because the way that the next few like events are unfolded, it's like a stack of we see the dad with Ivy, we see the elder conversation, we see Ivy in the woods, and we just keep having these repeats of like shuffling when these instances happened, and it unfolds the entire situation. But the way it's done is so cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So before she goes, there's something her dad needs to tell her or show her.
Yes. The scene is done so good.
So he's like explaining to her like what they were before. Like, hey, my father was this very rich man, but money can do horrible things to people. We don't have money here. You don't understand it, but it can really be awful. And then he asks like, do you know where we are? And she's like, yeah, we're at the shed that we don't go in. And then I just love how he delivers the line of being like, try your best not to scream.
Oh.
And you're like, what? Because we're all wondering like, what the fuck is in this shed? Like,
yeah. This movie draws everything out, which like if you aren't a fan of that might be difficult. But if you are into it, it makes it so much because it lets you let your imagination go wild.
Mhm.
You know, as soon as we get that, it's like, oh, wait, like, okay, so what could be in, like, I'm like immediately trying to like think through, and it gives you the time to go through all the thoughts.
Yeah.
Because then it bounces back, and we now see Ivy going into the woods with 2 boys that are cloaked, and she's got this magic thing of rocks. So we know, like, oh, he's already let her go. But then we see the scene of him still trying to convince the other elders, but we know, like, she's already out of here. Like, it's too late.
And is the scene that's also mixed into this the scene where they find Noah's stash? Or was that before?
Almost.
Oh, I forget.
No,
Right.
that's
yeah.
That's once she's in the woods by herself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so essentially, like, the elders are like, okay, like, if this, the father of the boy that died at the beginning of the movie is like, we need to see this through. And if it ruins us, it ruins us. Because basically they're all afraid, like, it will ruin everything we've built. And so you're kind of like, what do you mean it will ruin? Like, but they essentially all kind of like lay down to it, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And so we see Ivy in the woods with the boys, but then the boys are too scared, so they leave. They go back.
Well, but before they leave, she tries to reassure them. So she's got this little satchel. Does she call them magic beads?
Magic rocks.
She calls them magic rocks. Like, she's
magic
like, I have the
rocks.
magic bag of rocks, guys.
Right. Yeah.
It's fine.
So, we learn later that she never believed they were magic rocks. She was using that to appease the boys because she now knows the truth, which we're about to learn. But she was just trying to, like, she couldn't tell the boys the truth. She was just like, it's okay. The elders have hid this from us. There's magic rocks and they're going to protect us.
Yep.
They didn't fall for it.
No. But I love the effort.
Yeah. But they eventually leave her. They don't stay. Like, they both go at separate times, but they're too scared. And, the boy that leaves her at the last one is kind of like, you're so innocent, you'll be fine. Like, they won't hurt you. You're blind. They'll see that you're, like, not okay, and they'll leave you alone. And so we just see her going through the woods, and it's a lot, like, but then she is going with her little stick, and she falls into a muddy hole.
Yeah. And
she tries to catch herself, but she falls. And it just is so, like, treacherous. Like, she's panicking, obviously, but she's able to get herself out of the hole.
Yeah. So at this point, we've seen what's in the shed, right? She sees.
Yeah. So
So now we see. That's when we're introduced to what was in the shed, because she holds her hand out and she touches something and she, like, screams.
When she's in the shed, not in the woods.
Right.
Yeah. So the memory or whatever of her being in the shed, what she touches is a creature.
It's like the porcupine things.
Yep.
What we then realize and discover is a costume that a human person would wear to make them appear to be a creature. It is a cloak with, like, a mask and the porcupine back and the claws.
So we learn that the elders are wearing it to keep the village in the village.
Yeah.
And he essentially says, like, we're doing this for everyone's safety and benefit. Like, we're saving you all from what's really bad out there.
Yeah.
But then we quickly see that, like, there is a creature in the woods with Ivy. Like, the creature.
Which, even though she has learned a creature isn't real, the elders have told me it's all been this, this fake charade they've put on. But then I'm in the woods and I know that, but there's a creature and I hear it and it's growling and it's coming at me. Maybe they do exist. Like, you're trying to figure out, like, what is she thinking?
Well, because also the way that I saw it was that, like, she knows it's not one of the elders. She knows that. Because she's like, I know this isn't them. So who the fork is in here? Like, it's someone that actually wants to harm me, not just scare me, but really does want to harm me.
Well, and then when Ivy's dad is like telling her, you know, about like where they got the inspiration. It's like, oh, well, there were like myths of creatures and stuff. Like, so like that's where you got the idea. So then you have to wonder, or yeah, were they right?
Yes.
Are the creatures real? This one might be real, you know?
Exactly.
Because again, she can't see it, so she doesn't know by looks if it's any different than theirs or if it's the same. But it's like chasing her, and so she has this idea to like stand in front of the hole and at the very last second dodge, and the creature falls in.
Yes. And it's like, hooray, she did it. She avoided the monster.
Yeah.
And we should say, like, in the movie leading up to this, like, Noah was always very interested in the bad color and the creatures. Like, he would, like, applaud for them, and he would, like, try to get the color all the time. He liked it. He was very interested. But then we just see. And again, the video is just,
yeah.
The scene is so beautifully done.
It is. Because he falls into the pit, but when he does, he gets impaled by these jagged sticks, these big, pieces of wood. And he's not going to make it.
No.
And you just, the look on his face as he's dying.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It's like sad, and I feel like he just nailed the like maybe doesn't even understand
exactly
what's going on.
Exactly.
But just the way they even positioned like his body, like to be like on his side, like in the and then they pan out of the hole. Like it's so cool looking.
It very is, yeah. It very is. What the hell is
that?
And then,
Laura, that's where we got to the part that you were talking about his stash. Because that was how they realized.
Yeah, because again, it's all this. We're telling it as kind of one kind of cohesive story, a little bit, I guess, as best we can.
Much as we can.
But it was all like bouncing around. And so after we see the scene of him dying, we cut back to where the elders had found. They went into Noah's room, I think, to try to like get ideas as to what happened. Why did he stab Lucius? And under the floorboards, they see all of these like dead like chickens and feathers and like parts of the dead animals. So he had been doing some of the things that they blamed those we don't speak of.
Yeah.
But really it was actually someone that was not the elders, that was not in on the secret, that was doing it.
Yeah.
And that's when they realized like, oh, he's probably dead because, that comes later, I guess.
Yeah, because then they go to find him after they see his stash, and when they go to find him, then they realize he busted out of the quiet room.
Right.
So they're like, oh shit.
So now basically she gets to the road that her dad told her about. So she's like, she's coming to the end of her journey, and there's a wall that she gets to, and she has to like climb it. It's like vines and whatnot. Yeah. And she comes over it, and it's just like, this moment is just such a like, what?
Because all of a sudden you're like, wait, am I watching the same movie? What just happened?
Because all of a sudden we're like on an asphalt road, and a cop and a guard vehicle, like not a cop car, but like a security car.
Yeah,
and it has the sirens.
Modern day,
21st century car.
2004.
And we hear its little beep beep, the little like siren that cars do,
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, hey, there's a girl trying to get over, because he makes it sound like, oh, it's just someone trying to break in again.
Yeah, like it's just a regular security guard.
And we're like, break into what? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Because while this is happening, we find out what's in the black boxes that all the elders keep.
That's right.
Because they're opening them up. And what we see is their past life in, the 19th century, or in the 20th century.
Right, like the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah. So we can see kind of like their lives as we see her realize it's present day. But I mean, she can't see anything. So
I love the way that they like tell this story, because it's, there's this photo of them all when they're younger in like modern day 70s or 80s style. And they're in front of like a counseling center. And it's the group of them and they're all telling their story and they're all like very sad stories.
Just their loved ones getting assaulted, murdered, violent, horrific crimes.
Yeah.
And so I think it was it was Ivy's dad's idea because he went to this grief support group of, of all of them. And then they all, again, his dad was very rich, like a big rich Wall Street man or something that then got killed for his money. And so because he had all this money, he's like, you know what? I got all this money. Let's go and make our own society.
And all we hear him say, like in the montage of it, is like, I have an idea. So they never even like really get into the specifics, which actually it's one of those times where like less is more.
Yeah.
I appreciated that like style.
Yeah.
And then we do see that everything says like Walker Preserve.
Yes.
On the vehicle, on his uniform, like.
Yeah. So they live in a wildlife preserve, basically.
And like a no-fly zone, because at one point they allude to the fact that like, helicopters and stuff aren't allowed to fly over.
And even when she meets the security guard, he's like, "Can I help you?" Like
yeah, he's very
at first. He's very kind of like, I don't know, just a security guard about it. But then he starts to see like maybe this girl needs help.
Well, because he's like, go back to your car. And then he's like, wait, shit, you don't have a car. And you can tell that it's really out there. So like you couldn't just randomly be there without a vehicle.
Yeah. And then she says her name is Ivy Walker. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has her
little list.
She has her little list of what she needs. And she like even asked him at one point, like, what was that sound? Yeah. And he was like, oh, it was my car. You're what? Like she was so like, she had no idea what was happening.
And so he decides to help her. He's like, okay, you stay here. I'll be back.
And that's where we get our M. Night Shyamalan
cameo.
Because he loves to do that. So he's the other guard reading a newspaper.
Because he's like in one of they have like little supply sheds every so often around the perimeter of this wildlife preserve that they're all tasked with, keeping anything out of. But yeah, like the security guard goes in and he's like, I just need to get some stuff.
Right.
So he just starts like going through and like snagging all the medicine.
And then he asks for a ladder.
Yeah.
So she can get back.
Where's the ladder? And you can tell that the person that, M. Night Shyamalan is playing is like, you can tell he knows something's up, but he decides to just let it go.
And then we're back to the village and we hear people exclaiming like, Ivy is back, Ivy is back. And then one of them says like, she killed a creature while she was there. And then we see Noah's parents and they're like, oh, and they just cry because they know that's who it was. But then they all just kind of like, it's kind of like this quiet, unsaid agreement to like let their anger between each other go and just get back to like their regular life. Like
Yeah. And Mr. Walker even says like, his death will allow us to continue our way of life. Because like basically it's putting a realness to our story.
Because now everyone believes that
now they'll believe
there really is a creature.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's back there with the medicine that's going to save her love.
Yep. And she comes in.
Continue.
And that's it.
And she says, I'm back. And that's it.
Movie's over.
End credits.
Boom.
Which at first I was like, wait, what? And I was like, well, I don't know. When else would they have ended it? I guess that makes sense.
I liked it. Yeah.
Wild.
Lots of twists and turns, babies.
What a movie.
It's a fun movie.
It is really. It's a journey.
Yeah. And I just think it's such a beautifully done. Like I enjoyed watching it. Like this scenery was pretty. The way they spoke was pretty. Like it was
Yeah.
and okay, I can say I remember the first time I saw it. I did not see that coming.
No.
Like
no, yeah.
I had no idea that was where the twist was going to come from.
Yeah. No,
So-
I did not remember.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen a lot of critiques of this movie that it's, you know, it's unbelievable and that there's all these things that like wouldn't really fly, wouldn't make sense. But also this movie was about like beautiful storytelling. To me, it didn't need to be super realistic because that wasn't the point of it. The point of it was like I was in this environment. I was in this village.
Yes.
I was along for the journey.
Like it was that time era
Yeah.
for me. Like
Yeah. No, I love when a movie can just put you into something. Like, and it very much so felt like that. Like it felt like we were just plopped into this village and you can see like, and you're just taking a peek at like the interactions and the lives. Like you're just peeking into their life for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I love when a movie can do that.
and sometimes there's like such glaring inaccuracies that like you do get taken out of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like this had that. So it's kind of like let it go. Like let reality go. Just
Yeah.
But I would like to know, how much do you think that costs? Obviously, like the upkeep and everything, but like how much does it cost to have a land in America that's left alone?
Yeah, like and the completely privately guarded. When they said, I forget what it like. How frequent was it? Like, oh, like I'll get you the medicine. We have posts every like 10 miles or something.
Yes.
Where it's like, how big is this thing?
It has to be huge.
Oh, it's got to be huge.
Yeah.
It's got to be huge. And just how do you pay for a no-fly zone?
That's the one that I bet is like,
Yeah, wild.
I mean, it has to be like a billionaire. I think you would need to be a billionaire to afford this.
My like only beef is that I do wish there would have been more elders and people because like they've only got a couple of generations until they run out of bloodlines.
Yeah.
So I was like, it maybe should have been more.
It was too small to be that sustainable, although maybe not.
Like Kentucky.
Well, no.
Sorry, Kentucky.
Shots fired.
My father-in-law lives in Kentucky.
Sorry, Kentucky.
My husband and I are probably inheriting property in Kentucky.
Is that where the Appalachia is? What's Appalachia? Appalachia. Is that West Virginia?
Appalachia is more, I think West Virginia.
Okay, well,
right?
you know.
Span, I don't know.
Sorry.
This is really relevant.
No, I was saying although because when we talk about our psych, we'll maybe talk about some of that.
This is really
the Appalachian Trail is like huge.
Oh, it's giant.
It's like it goes over many states, right?
Oh yeah, this is multiple states. This is
surprising for like how many inbreds they have, you know?
Brianna.
What? I'm not wrong.
Stop being mean.
I'm not the first person. I'm not like
Appalachian
the first person in history to say this. You guys.
We need to, this is so irrelevant, but we need to do Wrong Turn for the podcast. Because we haven't done it for the podcast. We've watched it just on our own. And it's been a while. And that one was
a long time.
Really good.
Yes.
I feel like we might need to throw that one in. And then we can talk all about Appalachia.
Yeah, I mean, so that was my only one thing that I thought of. I was like, they really only have a few more.
Yeah. Well,
because they can have.
It's definitely one of those where it's like, wait, how is this village set up right? Because you have the elders, and they're the ones that know, and there's like 7 of them. I don't know. Like it's like a little group, but then at like the wedding, you see like all the people that are there. So then it's like, well, where did everyone else come from?
Yeah,
they would all need to know the truth, right?
And
everyone except the kids.
I did get the feeling that like when they were talking about it, some of the elders were saying like, okay, but now Ivy knows. How do we know if she'll keep it safe? And he made it sound, at least what I got was like, yeah, but we have to pass it on to someone. Ivy and Lucius are the safe couple
Right.
to let in on the secret because they will now know. Because obviously, like, you would have to know.
Mm-hmm.
To
Also,
survive.
the Appalachian Trail does not go through Kentucky.
Sorry.
It goes from Maine kind of down like the East Coast. It goes through, West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, but does not go through.
Well, I'm sure Kentucky has that anyways, so. But like, how wild would it be to live in the 1800s and just like a fucking helicopter fly over one day? Like
that would be crazy.
Can you imagine?
You guys,
That's why
be
people believe
crazy.
in aliens.
you guys, you're getting into my psych segment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, maybe then that's a good transition.
Okay. So just like these were not the real 1800s, she is not a real doctor, but that's okay because these are people that actually live in modern day.
Exactly.
So take it away, Dr. Laura.
All right, so we're going to do a little pivot on psych. We're going to get a little anthropological / geographical. And instead of talking about a standard psych, because we could talk about, fear and colors and lying and things, all that stuff that was used in the movie, but we've done that before.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we haven't talked about?
Inbreeding?
Uncontacted indigenous tribes of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like that's a little bit what Ivy experiences. It's clearly very different, but it's almost like what this village does is you take colonialism and you like reverse it. Like you like try to then make yourself like an uncontacted tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went down a rabbit hole, you guys, and there's not going to be like a ton that's going to be great for podcasts, but just I couldn't stop reading about all these uncontacted tribes.
Is a great rabbit hole to go down.
So when I was an undergrad, I took an anthropology class, and the woman who taught it, she actually had gone into some tribes and lived with some uncontacted tribes for a while, and wrote a book about it. And just that then lead into like the sociological aspect of it, that's actually what kind of made me get into the field of psychology, because I was just like, it's so interesting, like social psychology is so interesting. So let's talk about uncontacted tribes. There's still a lot of them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes. Which is, I'm like, but how do we know?
But they are uncontacted.
You know what? That is a good question.
So how we know actually is that a lot of uncontacted tribes, there's evidence because many of them are nomadic, or they don't have no flyover zones. So planes might go over them, and there's actually there's one that we'll talk about in a little bit that is like one of the most uncontacted tribes ever, and they like put their spears up, like get out of here, like to the plains. Because what do they think it is?
Yeah,
I mean, that would be
like, hey,
so
whatever
scary.
this is, we don't want it.
Exactly.
Like maybe we're just a no contact planet for the aliens.
You never know.
Shit. Yeah, they're letting us just live. So, okay, so we'll get into some of the ideas, but there's this idea of because there's a lot of ethical type of things that come up when you're talking about uncontacted tribes, and there's this idea of self-determination where, okay, we know there's between 100 to 200 tribes that technically are classified as uncontacted, which one of the articles I was reading was saying you shouldn't think of it as they're uncontacted. It's more that they are I forget how she put it. They're voluntarily isolated. So they do know that there are other people, but they don't want any part of it. Like they want to stay isolated.
Like they know about us, but we don't know about them.
Right. Yeah. Right. And a lot of times any tribes that do have no contact with, modern, quote unquote, modern world, they do still do some like trading and communication with other tribes that do have contact with the outside world. Just those tribes are a little bit more like removed.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, there's like between 100 to 200 still in the world today. They estimate that it's about 10,000 individuals. There are some that like rate like go up to about like 100 people or so, or more, I guess. But there's one uncontacted tribe that's just one guy.
Nice.
Which is actually, it's kind of sad because this person was part of a tribe that was technically considered uncontacted, but because of deforestation and like mining, that's usually what invades these people's land. Everyone else died. And so he's like the only dude left.
That's brutal.
I know.
People suck, man.
You know, they're the worst. Like,
yeah. So let's talk about what goes on with uncontacted people.
Mm-hmm.
So when uncontacted tribes have exposure to outside world, there's a lot that goes down. But the number one thing that happens is just really damaging health impacts.
Yeah.
So first of all, they're exposed to diseases. A stat that happens is once there's been an uncontacted tribe, as soon as they then get contact from the outside world, statistics show that they're after that initial contact, their population declines by 42%.
We just leave them alone.
I know.
Like, you know how like the body has like a microbiomes? It's like that. Like,
well, yeah. You're disrupting it.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, just think of like, America.
Yeah.
Well, right.
But some other health impacts, I mean, it can also change their diet and physical lifestyle. So many of the uncontacted people live in like South America, specifically Amazon rainforest. That's where the majority of them are, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But so their lifestyle and diet is very small. It's like very much their little bubble, but then they're exposed to things like, I'm just thinking of one picture I saw. They were showing a picture of an uncontacted tribe, and yet there was an empty freaking Coca-Cola bottle.
I was gonna say, well, they like bring a McDonald's.
Yeah. So it's like their diet changes. They because they're really one of the most kind of like sustainable communities in the world because they live in their little bubble and they sustain it and they do it. But as soon as then the outside world comes in, we kind of just
ruin
fuck that all up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the health impacts that can happen when there's exposure to the outside world is they're exposed to things like drugs, alcohol, cigarettes. But there also can be access to medical treatments that they would not otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where that kind of moral, ethical debate comes in, is like, especially that we see in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lucius will die without these medicines. We know we can get these medicines, but these medicines are technically not part of this world.
Mm-hmm.
So we risk the whole world that we've created by getting him these medicines.
I mean, that's why the young boy died at the beginning of the film. Like,
Exactly.
we get that it was an illness that probably could have been treated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some social and cultural disruption clearly will happen when these uncontacted tribes are exposed to, outside world. Mainly their traditional ways of life can be disrupted because they get these new ideas and technology. Like, can you imagine you're an uncontacted tribe, and have been for hundreds and hundreds of years. You're this small group of like 150 people. You just live off the land. And then someone comes in and shows you a cell phone.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I know I said it jokingly, but it really is like why we believe in aliens. Like, that is no different. Like, that is an alien person. Like, that makes, what the fork is a cell phone? Like,
exactly.
Or a helicopter or medicine.
Well, yeah, like, so even my husband, because we were talking, he's the one, I have to give credit where credit is due. He's the one that was the inspiration for tonight's psych. Because so we went out for his birthday this weekend, and so I have not prepped for this. And I was like, I don't know what to do for psych. And he goes, well, you should talk about uncontacted tribes. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But he was talking about how, like, okay, so you say you have these like isolated tribes and they see a plane fly over. Do you think they even would ever get to that conclusion that a person is inside that object? I don't know that
it would be like a spaceship flying over.
I mean, yeah, like I guess if I saw a spaceship, I would probably think someone was in there.
Right. Like
Right?
there was a sentient being in there. I don't
Or
know
is it
what
like
that
some
means,
sort
but
of a weird creature? Like, yeah, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there can be a lot of cultural erosion. And then like the psychology of it, it can lead to a lot of shock and trauma. So if you're just used to this one world, like especially Ivy, it's I actually think very helpful to her that she couldn't see everything. No less shocking, but at least one element of the sensors was removed.
I think that's why he felt
they
she was
chose
the
her.
best one to go.
Yeah.
You
Because it
know?
can just be so overwhelming that like you cannot even process it. Like you cannot even process what's happening. Also, when there's exposure to uncontacted tribes, it can lead to a lot of demoralization and depression, mostly because, again, humans are awful. And when these uncontacted tribes have exposure to others, there's a lot of death.
Yeah.
Due to diseases, people coming in and just, saying, oh, this is our land for mining, GTFO.
Bye.
So it can lead to a lot of like death and just like disruption of their whole way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And also, even if it doesn't lead to stuff like that, even if, okay, so say these uncontacted people decide, you know what? I think I want to choose to leave my tribe and be a part of this outside world. It can also then just lead to their cultural, like a loss of purpose, a loss of cultural identity that they have because it's like everything that they knew was just different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like depressing.
Yeah.
So just that forced assimilation that happens, colonialist bullshit.
Yep.
Their loss of their land. So there's that ethical decision on when the outside world knows that there is these isolated communities, what do you do? Do you risk them losing their cultural identity to offer them those possible what you think are benefits, like medicine, education, technology, or do you leave them alone?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I honestly can't see why you wouldn't leave them alone unless you were taking their land. Like, otherwise, there's no leave them alone. Like, there's no.
It's hard to justify.
This long.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
they're fine. They're there, so they're fine. So unless you're stealing their land.
But like so I'm playing devil's advocate here because I totally agree with that. And there's all these societies I'll talk about in a little bit that like have like come up with these statements and positions and laws in countries to do it. But okay, so say of a tribe where that they're living a hard life. A lot of them die before the age of 40 because they don't have access to proper nutrition or medical care. But you could keep them alive. Or offer them treatment. Is it unethical to not say, hey, I have this option. It's up to you if you want it or not?
See, that's tougher.
But just by you offering it, you're intruding and violating what they have.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, to me, I just think.
Okay, let me pose it this way. Okay, we're here on this earth and we have a lot of fucked up shit in our world. We have disease. We have Alzheimer's, cancer, ALS. We have like all this stuff. If there was an alien Overwatch that was watching us and they had the cure for this, but they're like, it's going to mess up their whole way of life. should they come down and be like, we have the cure to all these diseases. You guys can take it or leave it. But then we know that they're there. We know that they're there, and we know that they have like all this technology.
No, I think if you're going to do it, commit to what you're doing. You either do it or you don't. Like, you either take over what they have or you don't. You don't say, here, you can take it or leave it. Because by that, just you offering that, you're ruining what is already there. So if you're going to do it, like, go and do it.
Okay, so would you want the aliens to offer it? They have a cure to all of our diseases here on Earth.
No.
Interesting.
Because
I was tempted.
Let's say that you have a community that lives, their average life is 40, right? Who am I to say that my average lifespan of 70 is any better in America the way I do it? They've survived this long. And if they're vibing there, if they're doing their thing and they have an amazing 40 years of life, like, who am I to say?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, see, I don't know, because part of me thinks, as a human race, are we vibing? Or do we kind of
No, but see, that's my point. I think they might be more than we are.
Oh, I'm sure they are. But that's why I'm saying I'm reversing.
So maybe they should come to us and be like, wait, you guys, we need to talk.
Exactly. Because I'm thinking maybe the aliens have this advanced technology that maybe we should take them up on it, because we kind of suck.
Yeah. Like maybe we could figure some things out.
So, but it's hard to know, because it's almost like you turn the tables.
Yeah. Well, and then at what cost, right? It's never just medicine.
No.
Right.
No. Like, it's never all gain and no loss. Ever.
Yeah.
So because of that, there are a lot of, let's see, there's this United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And there's laws especially in the various countries that they know that there's uncontacted populations. They have these rules and regulations for leaving them alone. Now, those aren't always followed, especially when you come to things like mining and deforestation. The rights of corporations very much supersede the rights of these individual indigenous people, which is awful and terrible, but it's the reality. Also, I was just going to say, I think we talked about, like, many times they do know of the outside world.
Right.
Based off of, like, they'll see planes. Like, I remember when I was younger, it was maybe some picture in National Geographic or something of a plane flew over this part of, like, the Amazon rainforest. And there was this tribe that had never seen, for what we know, people outside their tribe before. And they're looking up at the plane and they're like, what the fuck? And, like, can you, like, just how crazy,
like, you would probably think it's some sort of animal, because, like, that, you don't know anything but that. Like, that would make the most sense. Yeah. Like a crazy bird.
Like, I think Machu Picchu was maybe that famous, kind of uncontacted tribe. But a lot of times they do know, just because of their talks with other tribes that do have contact.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, so the biggest areas they're at is the Amazon, New Guinea, Andaman Islands, and some African rainforests. The one that was the most interesting to me is the Sentinelese. So this is a tribe that's in the Sentinel Island off the coast of India. So we don't know what they call themselves, but it's this, like, little island that completely is isolated from people. So they're not getting, like, neighborhood tribes talking to them about stuff. We know that they are very resistant to contact, because when they see planes fly over, they do, put up their spears.
It's fair.
There's at this point, the only story I could find, there was a missionary, because that's a lot of the reasons why these tribes are contacted. So there was a missionary who decided to go to the Sentinel Islands to, spread the word of God and save
the nerve.
People. Oh, he was killed instantly.
Oh, well, damn. Oh my God.
They killed him. Like, no, we don't want you. Get
I
out.
mean, if they made it clear they didn't want anyone
I mean, they have
there,
every right to
like,
kill him, in my opinion.
come on, man.
Like, every right. It's
So
an intruder.
I think it's like, it's considered like one of the most dangerous, places to try to visit because, and I think now there's, rules like don't go there because they don't want it. But wouldn't that be fascinating?
Fascinating.
Like, I would not want
yeah.
to disrupt it,
No.
but like just to see.
To be like a fly on the wall,
Yeah. Just to be like, I just want to like learn how, like, what is your everyday
Like send a
life?
tiny drone in that just looks like a bug,
Mm-hmm.
This is what we should be working on.
No, totally. So yeah, that one, the kind of the document that's been created, to kind of like have these rules and regulations. They talk about that if it needs to be led by the uncontacted tribes themselves. If they come to you and say, I want to know more, I want to, be exposed to the outside, then you may, but otherwise it's got to be led by them.
It's very reasonable.
Which makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about like, also, they get everything they need on their own. So just basically stay away from them.
Yeah, like they're fine.
Yeah. But the problem is that their lands are very resource heavy, so people want to go in and get stuff. Mm-hmm. There's also like up until recently, so like Brazil, for example, where there's a lot. Up until the 80s, they had, not only did they not have something saying like don't contact them, they had things saying like contact them. like go in and
that's crazy.
Yeah, like you're allowed to like go and like reach out to them and missionary work to them and things like that. Go help them. Go help these poor people. Which is bullshit. I'm saying that sarcastically.
Yeah.
I can just say this as the daughter of a priest, but I have a feeling that like God, if he's up there, is not a fan of missionaries. Like I said it. Like I just have a feeling that he's like, you got it all wrong. That's not what I meant, you guys. Yeah. Okay.
You don't need to do that.
Not what I meant.
Because that's one of the, so other than like access to resources, like, like cutting down the rainforest and mining, the biggest reason why any of these uncontacted tribes have had exposure is all evangelical.
Yeah.
Colonialism bullshit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that was more like geography.
That was fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Anthropology. But I just thought that was going to be such an interesting discussion because I feel like it's almost like, this little group did the reverse. Colonialism of like, we're going to go retreat away and no one can contact us.
Yes.
Leave us alone.
Like,
Okay. So my psychological question I pose to you both. If you had an option to go and you knew you would have everything you needed the rest of your life, you would have medicine if you needed it. You would have the people that you love and connect with, but the limit of your population of your town's going to be what, like 300 people or something. And you could go, but that you could never then return. And you were just going to go live a simple life like the people in the village. Do you think you would do it or you would stay?
No.
So, like, when you say like simple life, do you mean like them like make my own butter, or like simple as in like I still get all my? Do I have TV?
You know what? For the purposes of this, let's pose it both ways.
Because it wouldn't make sense if you had TV. Because who are those people in the box?
Well,
if your whole world is this tiny little.
In my hypothetical, you know that there's an outside world. You just know you're actively giving it up.
No.
Yeah.
So yes, I say you have TV, you have all the comforts of life, but you're small and isolated in a group of just a few hundred people where everyone is committed. There will be no crime. There will be no, just like outside influence, I guess.
But you can't leave.
You can't leave.
No.
I mean, as you ladies know, I've been trying to start the compound for years.
Right. That's
and you
true.
guys just aren't
true.
buying into it. So, I mean,
But if I
that's kind
could
of
come
the
and
goal.
go from the
But yeah,
compound,
I need to be able to come and go. I don't think I can be like, oh, this is it forever and this is where I'm going to stay. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, I need my compound for the people.
I would
And
not.
then, but we can all come and go.
Okay. Yeah.
I would not.
I think I'm the same. I wouldn't do it. I love to travel too much.
Yeah. No, that'd
And
be
I
really
just
hard.
feel like when you're that close to that amount of people and that's it, like shit brews, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're not going to unconditionally love people that much. You need distance sometimes.
And as this movie taught us, you still
friends
get
and
crime.
family. Right.
You still can get illness and crime. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like a lot of these like uncontacted tribes, they're so small that I think there is a lot of that like, yeah, there's some inbreeding, there's some, just because there's only, 150 people in your tribe, like there's a small pool to draw from.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then you also, I mean, this is a whole other separate psych thing, but research and studies do show, like, even on a small level, like, if you're in a, stupid corporate environment, if you have a diverse group of people, so people from different ages, different genders, different backgrounds, different locations, you're actually more productive than if you're just in this homogenous group of people.
I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's like when people are like, I've lived in my hometown my whole life and I've never been outside of it. Like I've never even visited anywhere. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's wild.
Like I think it can lead to a lot of learning and just experiencing and like understanding people's perspectives is good. So yeah, I wouldn't choose it either, but some parts of it is tempting. Like I don't have to like go to this stupid job I don't want to go to anymore and pay these stupid bills.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that part is tempting. And that's why we need to start the compound.
Yes, I'm here for
but
the
we
compound.
can leave.
I'm ready.
Is the main thing.
Anytime. Spooky Zips compound.
Yeah.
Got Liz
we can call it whatever you want. The
we're
co-op.
Done. Yes.
The village.
Yeah, maybe we do call it the village. The Spooky Sip Village. I love this for us.
This is the next venture.
Yep.
But so my closing part of my segment will be just Google AI search for information about uncontacted tribes, particularly the Sentinelese. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. It's a great rabbit hole. You'll be amused for hours. Just look it up.
Yeah, loves it.
Okay, so for my fun facts, I'm going to start with kind of a different one. Maybe this is just the husbands contributed episode because this one comes from Matt. And what I have is a new genre of movie that I hadn't heard of before called Hey Matt film. And this is kind of like, I feel like this is one of those times where it's like, of course the Germans have a word for this specific
Is this like,
thing.
Hey Matt?
Yeah,
like,
I don't speak German. So it's HEIMAT and then film.
Okay, it's not like Hey to my brother, Matt.
No, it's not like, yeah.
I thought you were saying your husband contributed like, hey, Matt.
Right, he's like, hey, Matt.
That's what I thought too. Like, what an original name, Matt. Hey, Matt.
He made this.
This is his. Anyway.
I don't know if that's even close to the right pronunciation. If anyone speaks German, hit me up.
So what is that?
So it is a genre. So Heimat is home or hometown is what it stands for. So it's like a home or like hometown film. And it's a genre that came out after like World War II and just devastation that happened in Germany. And so they created this new kind of genre of film where it was a more like whole romantic world that was untouched by war or the hazards of everyday life. And so there are some criteria of what you would normally see in these types of films. It was usually shot in like the Alps or like the Black Forest in like Germany, but was always in the outdoors. So it's always filmed outdoors. Their characters were usually in rural settings. It usually had a sentimental tone and like very simplistic morality.
Okay.
The story centered around love or friendship or family and non-urban life. So getting away from urban life. They usually involve the difference between the young and the old, tradition, progress, or rural and urban life. And it usually involved a good and a bad guy wanting a girl, some sort of conflict ensuing, and the good guy ultimately winning the girl at the end. And then it's usually kind of like a happy ending. Everyone is happy except for the bad guy.
Okay.
Which, if you think of this movie, it does kind of perfectly fit this.
Totally does.
Mm-hmm.
Like it fully,
Yes.
like I don't know if M. Night Shyamalan had looked up these types of films or watched one, but it like perfectly fits in.
Yeah.
We'll have to reach out to him.
Hey, Matt, that's a good catch.
Hey.
Is M. Night Shyamalan still like doing movies, I wonder?
He just did one.
Yeah.
I just watched it. It was bad.
Oh.
Which one?
The one with the about the concert.
Okay, yeah.
Josh Hartnett is a dad in it, and he goes to this pop concert, and I wanted to like it so bad.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But
it looked weird.
They set up the whole concert as like a ruse to catch this like serial killer man.
Nice.
But the serial killer man is the dad, and like parts of it, like you can see it could have been good, but it was, I forget.
Yeah.
Can't even remember the name of the movie.
I remember seeing a trailer for it.
It's okay.
It's like Trapped or something. I think it's called Trapped or something.
Yeah.
It's bad. Don't.
All right. Well,
He did that Knock at the Cabin one, which like I actually thought was like kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
You know, though, I will say, at least in my personal opinion, his earlier shit was the best.
Yes.
Like by the time he got to Lady in the Water, I was like, we're done. Like, you're done.
Okay, but also the burden of being known for twists, like that,
that's all you can do now.
So difficult.
Is so epic and amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and even this one that that is a lot of pressure.
Yeah, like it's a burden.
Yeah,
to be known for the Shyamalan twist.
Yeah, it is.
Because you can never then do something just without a twist.
Right. Yeah, because then it's like, oh, well, although maybe that's the twist.
The twist is there's no twist.
Well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll move on with my fun facts. For the location. So they did like build this whole little town. So they sent out their location scouts. It was filmed like somewhere in Pennsylvania, which apparently is a repeated thing for M. Night Shyamalan. I think it was like 11 of his 13
because I know Signs
take place in Pennsylvania. So he just loves having it.
Is he from Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I guess that's a really easy thing to Google.
I don't know.
There's just no way to know.
There's no way to know. We'll never know,
you guys,
and we're never going to tell you.
Move on.
You don't get to know. Although the Appalachian Trail goes through Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he was born in Pennsylvania.
No, he was born in India.
Yeah. Oh, but his parents immigrated to the U.S. when he was 6 weeks old. And he was raised in Pennsylvania. So he is from Pennsylvania.
Oh, hey, there we go.
What a weird
There's a reason. So anyway, the location scouts, they wanted to find an area that just like had no sign of anything modern, mainly like power lines.
Right.
Like that's kind of what they were looking out for. Just like anything that was like a big clearing. I think they ended up having to do kind of like aerial searches to find a good spot. And they found the spot that they used for the movie. And so a crew of like 300 construction workers put the set together in like 11 weeks. So less than 3 months, they built the town.
Wow.
So they actually went and like built it. Like it was like, this is where we're going to build this little house. And this is where we're going to build like this whole area. Like they built it all out.
I find that so fascinating. Like when you think about it, how often how much work goes into that. And then it's just a set. It's just for this little
so now what is
moment.
This town? Is it used for anything? Do people live
They probably
there?
tore it down.
Yeah, I'm sure they tore it down. Because they probably, they built it to be in a movie. So I doubt it's structurally sound. I do love when they do it because like that must be easier for all the actors, right? Like to really like put yourself in that world,
like in it, right?
Yeah. So at one point they did, because the trouble with doing everything in real life and not in a giant soundstage or something, they got hit by like a straight blizzard, like 14 inches of snow was covering. So like everything, like they were like, we have to move. Like they were like trying to figure out where they could kind of pick up and relocate or where they could keep shooting. But literally like the night that they were thinking about moving, it like rained, and it was a nice warm rain that melted all 14 inches of snow, and they were able to get the set back.
Oh my gosh.
So they were
lucky.
able to stay there and keep going.
There were moments in the film that I was like, it must be really cold, because I think they tried to hide it, but there were a few moments where you could see people's breath. And then like there were a few where like there was the one scene with Ivy and her hands were bright red, because I think they were just like frozen, that I was like, I bet it's really cold on set.
But it just looked muddy, and it's like, like it's like they did not like. Obviously, they wanted it to be muddy for certain scenes,
right?
But like this was like that's just what this area looked like. Yeah. Speaking of just getting into character and like getting a feel for the period, they did a boot camp for the actors, so they like brought them in, and then they had people come and like talk to them about life during the period, like the late 1800s.
The days of yours.
Yes. And they like had them doing like blacksmithing and like woodworking and like making cheese and like doing like, they were having them do like all of these things about like what life was like. And they're saying like one of the biggest things is like you're pretty much always busy, like in order to just like subsist. It's like there's always something to do. And so that's definitely something they like wanted to incorporate in the movie of like, the town is always kind of working on something. Like they're all kind of doing all the, making everything that they need, doing
and
all
even
that
just
stuff.
the way they speak, like it's more than an accent. It's like actual dialect. Like
that sounds fun. I would do it for like a week.
Fun.
I know.
Like, that sounds great.
It sounds
like when like you
fun.
used to be able to like go to field trips for like the Salem witch trial. Like it's like that kind of,
Yeah. No, that actually sounds so fun. And apparently, Joaquin Phoenix carved. Wait, I'm forgetting her name. I mean,
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes,
Bryce Dallas Howard or something like that.
That's it.
Yeah, he like carved a cane for her in the woodworking shop.
Oh,
and he like carved like ivy into it, and she was like, that was like how she met him. Like that was like one of their first interactions.
Cute.
That's so sweet,
right?
I want to meet him.
I want to meet him
like
too.
such a good guy. Like,
and just like his energy,
right? Well, so did M. Night Shyamalan, because he wrote the Lucius part specifically for him. There was no auditioning.
I mean, it was perfect.
Yeah,
he did it perfectly.
Was Signs before or after this?
Signs was before.
Because so Joaquin Phoenix was in Signs, and then I wonder if that like helped.
Oh, yeah, it was 2 years before.
Oh yeah, it was
okay.
before.
So it's probably then M. Night Shyamalan met him and worked with him and was like, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to write this part for you."
He also Cherry Jones was in Signs as well. She was the cop, the sheriff.
Yep, and she was great in that. Oh.
Yeah, I feel like we have to talk about the fact that it has like such a stacked cast.
Yes. Like the elders,
like just throw Sigourney Weaver in, no big deal.
Yeah. Well, even like what's his name? Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes.
Like he's just one of the youths. Like he's just one of like the teens that's like running
and even
around.
The guy who's a bad watchman, he's someone.
Yeah.
And then obviously the guy of The Boy That Died is someone. Like they're all just
like
these really well-known actors.
Insane cast.
I know.
That I don't really know how it came together. Like I saw in an interview, like he said, like M. Night Shyamalan, like I think Adrian Brody, he called to be like, I don't know, maybe this is a long shot. Maybe you want to come play this role. And he was like, yeah, sure. So like maybe he just got really like everything worked.
I mean, The Sixth Sense was 1999. And then Signs was 2002. So like maybe by the time this one came around, people were like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So they were like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, no, because it has, I mean, it's, I think I don't know if this is like still the correct thing, but like the cast included 3 Oscar winners and 4 Oscar nominees. Like,
I easily believe it.
It's a stacked
cast
of people. Okay. For the music, which we talked about a little bit, the composer, and I think I'm not sure, I think they kind of made this decision together. They brought in this like young violinist named Hilary Hahn, who I think was 24 at the time, so the same age as like Ivy's character. And they like really wanted to get her opinion for like for the music and like the score. So a lot of like the violin is her, and she would give notes because they were like, we want it like from your perspective. Like we want to know what you would add to this.
Cool.
So I think she was a big part of why we like the score so much.
That is so interesting because I noticed when the credits started rolling that like the first or one of the first credits was like lead violinist. And I remember being like, wait, that's kind of weird. Like musicians are always at the end of the credits.
Yeah.
And this one, it was like one of the very first ones. So that makes sense.
No, I think she contributed a little bit more than like the usual musician does for me. Like she like got to add in
that's so
a little
cool.
bit of like her style and stuff, which like I never would think to do that of like, oh, you have this like young main characters. What if like we have someone who's also around that age and like really musically talented and get their like
that's so cool.
Get them to add the music of like them.
I would love to know like what she got to do, if that had any like impact on her life. That's so interesting.
I think she went out to work on a couple other movies. But I didn't see anything else on like IMDb. So, but I just like what an interesting way.
Yeah, that's really cool.
To do the score. The movie was originally going to be called The Woods, but there was another movie called The Woods. Just like they changed it to The Village.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then apparently when they first did the rating for this movie, it was given a rated R rating, which is surprising because it's squarely PG-13. And apparently it was like literally one very specific sound when Lucius is stabbed. I think they had added maybe just a hair enough to make it rated R. So they got rid of it. They were like, yeah, we'll just tailor it back.
I will say, even with them deleting the sound, I can't even imagine what that would have been, because like I said, that scene sticks with me. It just seemed so much like we were just watching a real life stabbing.
But I will say that's so interesting because my very first thought in that moment was that like, why was it silent? And I thought maybe they were trying to like enhance the cinematic moment because it would make at least a little sound. And so it seemed intentional that there wasn't. So I just remember being like, oh, I bet they did that to make it even more like, that's really interesting.
I think it's partially to drop the rating, partially like, well,
it worked
this could kind of work.
Totally worked.
Oh, interesting.
Working with what they had. Okay, we talked about the cameo, but on the newspaper that he's reading, the date is July 30th, 2004, which is when the movie came out.
Oh.
So that'd be like a fun catch if like while you were watching it, you saw like today's date.
Well, because just in that moment when he like fluffs the newspaper out, I was like, I feel like they're trying to bring our attention to it. It felt like we were supposed to pay attention.
Yeah. And that's the last of my fun facts.
Those are good fun facts.
Just a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I remember like reading this, and this was about signs, but I'm sure it is the same, that like a lot of the bigger actors really enjoyed working on M. Night Shyamalan movies because like they felt like he was so intentional about his decisions.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a good way of putting it, because it does feel like very thought out and very purposeful.
Yeah, no, I definitely heard like a similar thing when watching like interviews for this. Like everything was like every shot really was like storyboarded. Like they had a drawing of the shot that they were going to take, and like that's the take that they got from that specific angle. Like he does seem very intentional, and it feels intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're watching, it's like I feel like there's a reason he's going at it from this angle, or why I'm seeing it from here. Like it
definitely,
you get it when you watch it.
Yeah.
Well, one thing before we get into our ratings that we did not talk about, and it would be a crime not to, because it's like one of my favorite parts, is the very quiet undercurrent of the relationship between Walker, the dad, and Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like
Who is Lucius's mom.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this very unspoken thing. And it's the kind of thing, again, where like Lucius and Ivy had the dynamic of like, you don't touch me anymore because of how much you want to. And so did their parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they never really get into it. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have a big thing. It's just this very quiet dynamic, but I loved it.
I liked that detail as well.
Yeah.
Again, it added some just kind of romance and
Dimension.
yeah, dimension.
Like a little more. Yeah. Okay, so I'll be interested in where we go with our ratings because there's a lot there. So here on Spooky Sips, we don't give stars, we give sips. So out of 5 sips, how many do you give this movie?
Okay, I can go because I think I'm the one that decided that we should watch this one.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I feel that I need to see our spreadsheet because I think my ratings are all over the map and I don't understand my rhyme or reason. I think it's just like what I'm in the moment is what happens. But I think that kind of what we said a little bit earlier about where I just feel like we get dropped into this village. I feel a sense of nostalgia when I watch this movie. Like I remember what it feels like to be in the village every time I watch this movie again. I liked the eeriness of it. I loved the sounds of it. I loved the relationships of it. So while it's not a truly terrifying movie, it was for me the first time I watched it. There was parts that really scared me. And it's not a perfect scary movie for me, but it is very, very close. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Oh, damn.
It's a high movie. I love something about this movie. I love this movie. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Okay, I can go next. So I was yeah. You definitely went higher than me. Spoiler.
That's all right. For some reason, I love this movie.
Like, and I've seen other people criticize it for this too. Like, it's not that scary. Like in terms of like a horror movie. Like it's not like a horror movie. It's more like drama, psychological thriller, high mat film, as I just learned. But I really enjoyed it. Like I really liked watching it. I liked watching it again. I don't think it was like the perfect movie. And it's like, this is one of those movies that honestly, I can't tell if the more I think about it, the more I like it or the more I dislike it. Like, it's like, as I question the village, I'm like, well, there's this and well, there's that. And so I honestly don't know which way I go. So for me, I think it's like a 3.75. Like it's like a hair below a 4, but it's like definitely above a 3.
That's one of the things that I actually love about our podcast, and our spreadsheet does reflect it, is that like we do so many different ones that we don't always base it just off the horror. I say that in quotes, horror quality, because to be honest, 7 is one of our highest rated episodes. And that's more of a psychological thriller. Yes, there's some really intense moments, but it's not like horror.
No.
Yeah.
So that's what we always are like on our toes, Yes. So I think for me, I was thinking a 3.75 because I love it so much. I really do. Like I would very highly recommend it. I love everything about it. And so I think I'm giving it a 3.75.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Solid. Yeah, I don't know why. Something about this movie. I just love.
I know. I don't completely disagree. I thought of bumping it up, but that's, because it is so good.
Your gut.
No, it is good. And honestly, like, I feel like I keep saying, it's like, I don't know if it gets like better or worse in that it's like, oh, like it's worse in that, once you question the village and the people who went there, and then could they really do this? But then there's like the other side where like when you think about it and more like analyzing it, right? Like anthropologically, like socially, like where it's like you have these like billionaires that are just like cosplaying as like living in the 1800s for some reason. Like, and it's like you get money is the root of all evil, but also I have $1 billion.
But also I'm completely a benefactor of all of it. Like,
yes.
Like
I don't know. It's either like even more genius than I'm realizing, or maybe even worse than I'm realizing. And I don't know which way it goes.
Love it.
I will
it's both.
say this though, like I was relatively still in my youth when it came out, and I don't think we saw it like right away, but we saw it pretty soon. So I was like a teenager when this movie came out. And I will say I remember being so fascinated by it and thinking so much about it. And here I am 20 years later doing the exact same thing. So like I've literally not stopped thinking about this movie for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
No,
it is like
you can
it is
definitely think about it for a long
that
time. Well, when I
it will
went
make
and
you wonder.
because I realized I had watched this movie while watching it. Well, then when I went and did my research, and this just goes back to like we started this podcast because this is stuff we already love to do. I had already watched a bunch of interviews with Shyamalan about this movie.
That's amazing.
They had been watching.
Yes, we are true to our like we are who we're authentic on this podcast. Okay, we're nothing but if authentic.
Speaking of being true to our core and authentic,
Dun dun.
we also like a good holiday movie. So, Bran,
you guys, I'm really excited for this. So we are going to watch Violent Night. Remind me of the actor's name.
oh my gosh, I don't
He's
know.
Hooper.
Cooper in Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, but what's his real life? It doesn't. That you'll know him by that. He's the guy from Stranger Things.
He was Hopper.
Hold on.
What did I say?
You said Cooper.
No, I said Hooper. I thought it was Hooper. Is it Hopper?
Hopper.
I said Hooper.
It's
David
Hopper.
Harbour.
David Harbour. His name
No,
was
nobody knows
Hopper.
that. He's Hopper from Stranger Things. But it looks fantastic. And we did you guys so dirty for our Thanksgiving episode that we're like trying.
We did ourselves dirty.
This is an apology.
You know what, though? I listened back to our episode, and that was a funny episode.
No, it was
So,
a great episode.
although it was a terrible movie,
Great
I think
episode.
it was a good
Yes, I agree.
good podcast episode.
Yes. So get in the holiday spirit, watch Violent Night, and then get watching and get sipping. And we'll see you on Christmas Eve for that episode.
Oh my god.
That's
Bye.
crazy. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Spooky Sips. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. To stay up to date on all the spooky things we're up to, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at spookysips_podcast. And if you want to help support the podcast, consider buying us a coffee, or really a cocktail. We are completely independent, so every little bit goes a long way to keeping our podcast running and improving. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.